while I am a dad and a parent, I still don't identify with that identity. Maybe it's an acquired taste. Maybe there are ways to really enjoy and succeed in parenting without going full dad. Only time will tell.
Welcome to a very special episode of Startup Dad, my 100th episode. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of dads who are also leaders in the world of startups and business. I'm your host, Adam Fishman. To celebrate my centennial episode, I invited my brother and relatively new parent, Dan Fishman, to join me. He's the Associate General Counsel for real estate investment and lending company, Redwood Trust. He's worked as an attorney in real estate and finance for over a decade. In addition to that, he's also a husband, the father of a daughter, and my brother. We talked about his first year with a young kid, what it feels like to finally understand what your parents went through, the most surprising changes he's noticed as a dad, what his teenage self would think of him as a father, and some frameworks he's picked up in the first year as a parent. We also talked about what we'd want his daughter to hear in 20 years if she listened to this episode. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Startup Dad on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Welcome, Dan Fishman, my brother, for the very special 100th episode of Startup Dad. I've done it. I've hit 100 episodes, and it only took me about 2 years. Dan, as my brother and now a dad to a 1-year-old, how does it feel to be on the show?
It feels great. I mean, I have no idea why I'm invited or what I'm doing here, but I guess I'm a dad now. I'm going to tell a bunch of people a lot of obvious things about parenting that they probably already know. And they can laugh about my perspective now versus what it's going to look like in 6 months.
You might be surprised if people already know these things. Now that you are a dad, do you finally understand what mom and dad were talking about all those years?
I suddenly care a lot more about the electric bill. I do now understand why mom released our pet gerbil into the suburban wilderness. I think my wife, Sophie, is pretty close to releasing one of our dogs, maybe both of them. So yeah, absolutely understand where they're coming from. And seriously, they did a great job, all things considered. It's not an easy task.
Yeah. Do you think being a parent has changed since we were kids?
Yes, significantly so. And being a kid has also changed since we were kids. Kids like vegetables and reading now. I don't understand what that's all about. Screen time? What's that? I mean, like we used to watch 12 hours of TV a day. It wasn't a thing, and video games, I was pretty much raised on video games. So, but it's a great reminder, that there's quite a bit of wiggle room when it comes to raising a human. So even if you don't do everything perfectly spot on, good chances are, as long as you try when it matters, your kid will probably be fine.
Can we go back to the gerbil story? Do you want to tell the gerbil story?
I think we were playing Sega Genesis in the basement, and mom kept asking us to clean the gerbil's cage, and we kept putting it off and just playing video games. And one day she finally kind of blew up and was like, fine, you don't want to clean the cage? The gerbil's being released. And she took it out back and set it free. And that was the end of the family gerbil. Imagine he's still living in the suburbs of Michigan today and has attained a lot of wisdom and experience over his many years.
Totally. I don't recall shedding a single tear about the demise of that rodent. Maybe we were upset for about a hot second, and then that was it.
I think it was surprising more than it was upsetting. And then, we kind of moved on.
For those listening, I don't recommend getting a rodent as a pet. You too might end up throwing your kid's gerbil out the window, out the door, if that happens. Okay, I'm glad that we could relive that experience on this show. Tell me about inside of work Dan versus outside of work Dan. This is like Severance. You've got an innie and an outie.
Yeah, the only problem is outside of work Dan can remember what inside of work Dan has to stress out about. For some reason, I'm just a very different person at work, and it's probably because if I wasn't, I'd never be able to get anything done, and I'd just joke around all day. And so, at work, I'm very focused and borderline antisocial in terms of not participating in social activities and just getting my stuff done. outside of work, I'm more personable and a lot less serious. I think it's a gene in our family to be less serious outside of work because, I remember growing up, our extended family had, varying degrees of serious jobs, and yet they were, essentially children outside of work when they were with us. And so that's a lot of fun. And I try to make things fun at home and keep work Dan at work.
Okay. And work Dan is a lawyer. You're also married to a lawyer. I'm married to a lawyer. I got a lot of legal support in the family. So that's helpful. Not particularly helpful as a podcast host, but helpful in other things. As a sibling of yours, your only blood relative sibling, I've seen you transform into a dad. What is the most surprising change that I might not have noticed?
Quite a lot has been surprising. It's all very new and very surprising. No matter how much wisdom and knowledge and experience and anecdotes people share, it's just such an individualized journey that you really have no idea until you're actually in it yourself. And I guess I'd say one particularly surprising thing is how my experience of time now is so different from what it was before. In many ways I'd been told about, but others I hadn't. Again, I didn't and couldn't appreciate it until I started experiencing it for myself. I guess this is the story with every major stage in life. Demands grow, time shrinks, and you just find a way to still get everything done, rise to the occasion.
When you think about your relationship with time, time goes by much faster now. You feel like you have less of it. All of the above, none of the above.
All of the above, yeah. And your priorities change constantly. The time you spend communicating with friends and family might take a beating sometimes, and then, organizing your social calendar might take a beating at other times. Basically, you become a parent and your brain is full and you can't get any more into it, or at least I can't. Maybe that's just my brain. But it's made me a more efficient worker and tasker, I think. I suddenly have an easier time seeing the bigger picture, or at least it feels like that, of things, both personal and professional. I know you had an episode at one point about the phenomenon of dad brain or mom brain and the science behind that. Of course, I've forgotten most of the content from that episode, but at the time I found it super interesting. And when I take a minute to reflect on it, it's crazy that you're witnessing the results of your own brain rewiring itself.
That they are. I cannot even remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So unless I put it on my calendar.
That's exactly right. That is my personal experience as well.
You also told me that you don't really feel like a dad. What does that mean?
I'm not sure what to make of it. And maybe that comes with time where you just go full dad. But while I am a dad and a parent, I still don't identify with that identity. Maybe it's an acquired taste. Maybe there are ways to really enjoy and succeed in parenting without going full dad. Only time will tell.
What does it mean to go full dad? Is that like cargo shorts and Crocs and a baseball hat?
No, I'm pretty close to that, I think. It's more like, minivans and activities and your identity being centered around being a dad.
I gotcha. Maybe as more of your friends become parents, that might happen.
And I think we're going to be seeing some of that very soon here.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait. Are you going to tell all your friends, I told you so, when they're like complaining about not sleeping and things like that?
No, I'm going to be more understanding of what their life is like than they are of mine.
Well, tell me about your first children, actually your first two children, your furry ones before your current daughter.
We have two Scottish Terriers, one of which I brought into the marriage, and the other, which we got together. They're around 8 and 2.5, and they have complete opposite personalities. And Anna absolutely loves them. Like she loves nothing more than trying to sneak up on them when they're sleeping or eating and put herself at risk. So far, no incidents. She loves to just chase them around the house in her like crawl, walk kind of way. They're starting to warm to her. Yeah. They'll actually let her hug them now and pet them occasionally. Before it was like, get away from me.
What does a pet look like from a 15-month-old? Is it like slamming your hand down on the dog, or is it gentle?
Some of each, I think she understands the spirit of being gentle. So she knows to kind of stroke lengthwise as opposed to slamming.
Speaking of the dogs, your oldest dog, Nigel, who is 8, in one of your sleep-deprived stupors, you and Sophie, your wife, left him out in the backyard overnight. And one might think he would let you know, he would bark, he'd be like, come let me in. You might hear that listening to this and go, oh my God, they left the dog outside overnight. But as it turns out, he had a great time in the yard in the middle of the night. What do you think he was doing out there all night long?
I have no idea. It's really dark out there. I guess they don't need their eyes to see as much as we do. He was probably just patrolling the perimeter looking for gophers and rats and anything. He's independent to a fault, and that night changed him forever. Now he wants nothing more than to be freed.
Just live amongst the wilderness in your backyard.
He's supposed to be a lap dog, kind of, but nope. Yeah. He's out there. He's out there trying to solve world problems.
Now, I am curious if we reflect on how we were raised and our own parents. Are there any parenting traits from our parents or other parents that you've observed that you are consciously trying to repeat or avoid?
In terms of repeating, I think our parents did a great job of letting us choose our own paths, which, in terms of sports, hobbies, social lives, education, etc. And at the time, of course, I didn't appreciate it. And I didn't recognize that this is not necessarily the case with every family. And so we were fortunate to have parents that kind of let us develop our own path and not try and influence our decisions, at least the, largely peripheral ones. Another thing that I'm trying to pass on is a love for music, and especially live music. I think our parents did a great job of, whether it was intentional or by accident, getting us hooked on all types of music and developing a love of live music. And so far, Anna is on that path, and she has great taste.
How are you exposing her to music, live music? And is she like a full-blown Bruce Springsteen fan yet?
She is not a Bruce Springsteen fan yet. She mostly likes the Beatles and the Grateful Dead. And, I try not to play anything overly harsh for her. When there's music in the park, we take her. And, obviously now that she's a little older and a little more durable, we can continue to do that, like Stern Grove Festival and, Hardly Strictly and other events in Golden Gate Park and outdoors. She loves to go to music class and dance, and it's quite fun to watch her experience it for the first time.
How does she feel about Tom York and Radiohead?
It's funny. I was playing some for her the other day, and she absolutely loved it. And it was Sophie that came in the room and turned it off. But
Sophie had enough.
I don't think she likes the whiny voice or the complex drum beats. And
you got to play some Idiotech next time.
No, Anna was really into it. We were grooving.
Okay. What about things that you might avoid? What would you avoid from our parents' experience?
In terms of what to avoid, I guess I'd say divorce. Just kidding. But honestly, that negative is also a positive in terms of how our parents handled it. They did such a good job of insulating us from the unpleasantness of that situation. It's got to be terrible to go through, and to be able to spare your kids of some of the worst aspects is a blessing, really. And it wasn't so much sheltering us as it was just bringing us in on the parts that were important for us to understand and relevant to our lives, and sparing us from all the, the worst stuff and the different aspects that, we didn't necessarily need to know about. Today, I am possibly riddled with childhood trauma that I just don't know about. It's hard to say, honestly, but the divorce example aside, I think that's special, to be able to spare your kids from negativities of the real world and most of the harsh difficulties of being an adult with adult problems. Most of it just isn't relevant to how they should be experiencing life. They'll deal with it later.
Yeah, that's true. When they're in their 30s and 40s in therapy. What is the weirdest piece of parenting advice that you've gotten from one of our parents?
I don't know that I've gotten any direct parenting advice from Dad, He's more so interested in what Anna is doing and where she's going in life at her 15-month-old age. And I'm sure mom probably gave me some strange advice. Nothing comes to mind, though.
I don't think I can recall any either. Or maybe I've just blocked it all out because it was so bad. So I'm very curious. You got started with your daughter a little later in life, so certainly later than when we had our kids. And I'm wondering what that decision was like for you and Sophie to start a family.
We both went to school for a fair amount of time, so we were kind of already older to begin with when we were, really getting into our careers. We had always talked about, oh, do we want one kid? Do we want to be a family with no kids? Can we justify having more than one kid? Or are we comfortable being that couple that is sort of, perceived as selfish and not having any children? We talked about it for a long time. We thought about it. And then, we decided to start by trying and kind of let fate decide. We weren't going to go scorched earth on trying to get pregnant if we couldn't. And it ended up being a lot easier than we thought. And here we are.
There you go. And now you have a sneezing, contagious 15-month-old. So
that's right. Yeah, she sneezes into my mouth sometimes, and it makes me sick. Literally, that's how I got COVID.
Super spreader. What is the earliest memory that you have after becoming a dad?
After becoming a father, I was in the delivery room to meet my baby for the first time. It was a scheduled delivery, so it was pretty quick and to the point. The baby was kind of trapped upward in Sophie's body, and so our doctor was like elbow dropping her repeatedly to try and move the baby towards the out position. Finally, there was a baby, and it was Anna, and she was great.
Sophie's like, why do I have all these bruises on my stomach?
Seriously.
It's because DDT surgeon was just off the top rope on the stomach with the elbow.
It's always shocking to be in any kind of, operating room and see how physical and brutal surgery actually is. It takes quite a bit of muscle to get a baby out. There was Anna. I met her and then they took her over to the little buffet hot plate that's in the corner of the room. And eventually the nurses, they called me over to meet her and I cut the cord, which to me seemed like a lot of responsibility and maybe dangerous. That's my earliest memory.
I mean, if the doctor was like elbow dropping your wife just a few moments earlier, I can't imagine that cutting the cord was all that dangerous. I'm wondering how they pull that off without actually like elbow dropping on the baby.
Probably some sort of a wedge technique, I have no idea.
Now, you got to see me be a dad first, and I'm wondering what surprised you most about fatherhood that I didn't warn you about.
Everything. You issued no warnings. I observed warnings occurring in life just by, watching your kids grow up and all of you interact. And I took a lot of lessons away from that, but it's all been surprising. I knew I was going to be tired, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. And, I knew I was going to be pressed for time and I had no idea it was going to be like this. And I didn't need any warnings. Like, it's, again, such an individualized experience that you can warn somebody left, right, and center, and you don't know what their baby's going to be like or their partnership in raising that baby. So
true. Yeah. What do you think teenage Dan would think of dad Dan?
He'd probably think that I'm a corporate sellout, but he would be wrong, of course. I think he'd think I'm a cool dad, fun dad, because I'm basically still my teenage self. So he'd be like, oh, I know that guy.
So for things that don't remain true, what's been the most un-you thing that you've done since becoming a dad?
I've actually really enjoyed parenting, and I wasn't expecting it at all. I was terrified. I think it's my nature as a cynic and a lawyer to sort of prepare myself for the worst. I'm not just pleasantly surprised. I'm like extremely surprised at how fun it's become, 15 months in. I can't say that it was that fun in the very beginning, but it's continued to get better and better over time.
I love that. What advice would you give to the younger version, not teenage Dan, but like, let's hit the time machine and go back to right before Anna was born. What advice would you give to yourself then?
Okay, so that would be early February or March, and the year would be 2024. My eye bags would be gone. I would look and feel great. I would be a specimen of health. I probably would have counseled myself to bone up on alone time and one-on-one Sophie time as much as I could before the baby arrived. I was way too busy trying to do all of the other things: golf, travel, friends, booze, all the stuff, when I should have realized what I would actually miss the most about pre-parent life. And that's just the simple times of having time to yourself and having time just with your wife. So that's probably the advice I would give myself.
Sitting around the kitchen table, reading a newspaper and sipping a cup of coffee in pristine quiet, stroking a dog on your lap. Okay. Speaking of reading, I'm always fascinated by this because now my kids are older. What's the go-to book or books that you're reading to your daughter right now?
Reading, by the way, to a kid is so fun, especially as they start to get a little bit older and actually engage with the pictures and understand some of what you're saying. And we're firmly in that territory at this point. It just keeps getting better. And there's a ton of fun kids books out there. I really like anything that I've read so far, at least, by John Klassen. A good friend of mine gave us the Hat series as a gift, and it's incredible.
Is that like I Want My Hat Back and things? Oh, love that. Love that book.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. I really like the one with the two turtles that fight over the hat and then end up finding common ground, and it's heartwarming. And we love books by Julia Donaldson, and the illustrator is her husband, Axel Scheffler, I think. That's like the Gruffalo and Room on the Broom and stuff. And then in terms of like a favorite, someone, and I don't know who it was, hopefully I can shake them loose either through this podcast or another method, but somebody gave us this book that Anna is obsessed with. It's like 50 years old. It's super British, and it's called The Elephant and the Bad Baby. It's ridiculous. Neither Sophie nor I had ever heard of it, and we haven't been able to find anyone else who's heard of it, although it does have reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. So people know about it. Some people know about it.
One can still purchase a copy of this book?
Yes. Okay. And I'm not being compensated for pushing this book. Anna can't get enough of it. It's strange. We didn't necessarily love it at first, but this is her first. We've grown to love it more with each reading, and this is her first like true favorite book that she would be willingly listen to at any time, back to back to back, if we would do it.
What is this book about? I'm now curious. It's called The Elephant and the Bad Baby.
It might be a flawed story. Either that or it's just heavy irony. It's about an elephant who one day is out on a walk and encounters a small redheaded baby, the bad baby. And the two of them pair up, and the bad baby rides the elephant all around town, and they visit various purveyors of goods and food and groceries and various things. And they steal something from every shop, which is not a great lesson. And they never address the stealing. They're
just like, here you go, kids, ride an elephant and steal stuff.
Yeah. The lesson in the end they teach you is the baby is bad because he never says please when the elephant asks him if he wants something. He just says yes.
They just glance over the stealing.
Yeah. So the stealing is kind of lost. It's buried, and the baby never once said please, so that's what makes him bad. It's beautiful British irony, I would suppose, and maybe it's actually a book for adults. I haven't actually thought about that.
I imagine it's not too long till I have another British person on the show, so I'm going to ask them if they've heard of The Elephant and the Bad Baby. How do they work in the didn't say please part? The
elephant just has this realization at one point and stops. And they've been getting chased by all of the shopkeepers who they've been stealing from. And the elephant just suddenly realizes, oh, he hasn't once said please. And he freezes. And the baby falls off the elephant. All of the shop owners that are chasing them slam into the elephant. And he just has this realization that he never once said please.
Okay. Elephant and the Bad Baby. We're going to link to this one in the show notes. It's going to get sold out real quick. All right, I ask everybody parenting frameworks and guardrails. I realize you've only been a parent for 15 months. And so you have no idea if any of this will be successful. Tell me about some of your parenting frameworks that you might have.
One framework that I particularly adhere to is just intuitive parenting. Like, we've all done this as humans for so long, and I just try not to overthink things and try not to worry about what other parents and other kids are doing at different ages and milestones and timing and development, and just enjoy sort of the natural development of your own child at their pace.
Yeah. It helps that my niece is a genius, your daughter. That does help. What other frameworks you got?
I try to be present in the limited time that I get with Anna, especially during the week, both physically and mentally. You know, all of us are so distracted and have demanding jobs and are getting emailed constantly and texted constantly, and there are news alerts. And I just try to put the phone away and spend quality time with Anna in the maybe 2 or 3 hours I get with her each weekday. So far, it's helped develop like a much stronger bond between the two of us, and all the other stuff can wait. I definitely try to make everything fun, at least while she's young enough for that to be possible. She laughs a lot and likes to play, and even the mundane can be fun, like mealtime and things like that, bath time especially. I try to make everything fun. I know at some point here soon it's going to become impossible. I can't make teething fun. I haven't figured that one out yet. It's not fun for us either, but I want her to be a joyful baby.
Yeah. You have a kind of a funny story about teething and wading through the difficulty of the experience, or embracing the difficulty. Can you tell me? Involved you doing some gardening work in a fugue state? I love this story, so I'd like you to tell it.
It feels like this was 6 months ago, but I think it was 2 to 3 weeks ago, maybe. You know, I don't care what anybody says about parenting or how they portray parenting publicly. Like, doing this is hard, and definitely it has to be for everyone else. Like, nobody has an easy time with it. Some days are really tough. It's important not to downplay them and to maintain a little perspective and enjoy how great most of the other days are. Back a few weeks ago, the whole household had COVID, not the dogs, at least as far as I know, but the humans had COVID. Anna was having a really fussy period because she was sprouting more teeth. And so she was just unsettled all weekend, and we were all sick and exhausted and brain fog. And, you know, she was largely inconsolable for much of the weekend. And at one point, I got a short break to do some yard work while Sophie and Anna were taking a nap. And I started tidying up the yard, which is scary looking now that we have a child and we're millennials that live here who don't know how to take care of a yard. I got a little carried away trimming our medium-sized lemon tree. You know, I pared a branch here, a branch there, and it's gone. I cut the whole tree down. I just passed the point of no return and cut the whole tree down.
So you're just like snip, snip, snip. And you kind of looked around and you're like, well, I can't go back now. Let's take this whole thing.
I had this little handsaw for like cutting some of the branches that are like getting tangled and making it difficult for it to grow. And then, you know, I just kept kind of cutting off another twig and branch here and there, and the lemon tree was gone. Sophie was not pleased.
At some point, did you like cut down the trunk? When did you realize you were like cutting the trunk of the tree and it was no more?
In my infirm, brain fogged state, I kind of lost track of what I was doing. And I also just thought that, I don't know why I thought this at the time, but I thought that the tree would just regrow from the trunk. But apparently that's not how trees work. You got to keep the trunk and the stump can't just regrow a tree.
Right.
I probably should have Googled that before I cut the entire thing down, but oops. Yeah. So it was a point of great household strife. And, you know, Sophie treated me like I had killed a family member of ours, which, to be fair, I kind of had.
Cutting down the tree was more traumatic than leaving the dog outside overnight.
Yeah. That day got pretty dark, but as it turns out, it was just a fugue state induced by COVID, and I was executing on some fever dream. You know, it made sense at the time. and it tracks with my overall vision for the yard to be achieved in 2029.
Well, now I know what to get you for Christmas this year. It's going to be a lemon tree, full mature lemon tree that we can plant.
If you get one without thorns, because I cut the bejesus out of myself trying to cut that thing down. That was my punishment.
That's amazing. Oh,
yeah.
Fugue State, COVID-induced lemon tree massacre, the great lemon tree massacre of 25. You have one more framework, which is just don't compare who's doing what in work in the house.
This is a relationship framework. Once Anna's old enough to be doing things, then I will compare. There's just so much invisible work going on, and everybody's doing a million things, and everybody forgets but everybody's contributing. And the point is just, grab an oar and keep rowing. It never pays to try and come to an even distribution of things.
Okay. So just a few more for you. You mentioned a few times now that Anna thinks you're very funny. And I'm curious what you do to make her laugh these days.
She laughs at pretty much everything that I do, which will probably continue throughout life, but maybe she'll be laughing at more misfortunate events than intentional jokes. But, there are noises I make, there are songs we sing, we revisit parts of her favorite books.
There's a bunch of shopkeepers running into an elephant.
Yep. We do like imaginary riverboat cruises and airplane flying and all kind of silly kid stuff for somebody so young. And she loves it.
All right. Well, tell me about the manual snot sucker. I understand you are not a fan of this device.
We have like 12 different snot suckers, but the first one we tried was the one where you like stick it to their nose and then suck through a hose to create the suction.
Yeah. Isn't that like the nose Frida or something like that?
Yeah. Yes. It's very effective. It was so gross. I don't want to get too disgusting for the show, but I could taste it just by breathing the air. And that was it. I was done. So now we use the battery operated one.
Oh, that sounds much better. You don't have to put your mouth on it. It's funny because that nose Frida has come up a few times as a popular item, but maybe some people just love boogers. I don't know.
I was talking to a colleague about it maybe a week ago and they love it. I guess I'm the only one. This might be my contrarian view.
Ooh, it's a hot take. Okay. What is the relationship that you want Anna to have with technology as she gets older?
She's got to have a relationship with technology. It's completely integrated already. And when she's grown up, it's going to be worlds different. I just want her to be comfortable with technology and keep her sort of thoughtful and curious. Once you can start using ChatGPT to do all your homework, like who knows what school is going to look like 10 years from now. I just hope that she enjoys acquiring knowledge and doesn't rely on machines. And of course, like any parent, I worry about social media and disinformation out there, screen addiction, all that stuff. The internet is a scary place and it seems to get scarier every year. But by the time she's old enough to really interact with technology, I don't know what it will look like.
She's going to be on like GPT 50 or something like that when we're finally there. Yeah. Maybe there won't even be screens. It'll just be voice. Everything will be voice controlled. Or we won't be allowed to look at screens because of our robot overlords. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, she might be a cyborg by the time she's 18. There's no way to predict.
Okay. But she's not 18 yet. She just turned 1. You had a great 1-year-old birthday party for her. That was very fun. She's not walking. She can hobble. She's not talking yet, mostly babbling, making sounds that sound like words. What skill or skills are you most excited to teach her once she is like a fully vertical walking and talking human being?
The number one for me is golf. Like as soon as she is ambulatory, we are straight to the driving range. I'm going to bribe her and make it the most fun experience of her life. And
is that so that you can play more golf?
Partially, it's also so I can not pay for college, ideally. But if college is even a thing in 18 years, it'd just be a great way for us to spend quality time because, my God, golf takes a long time. And I think it would go a long way to protecting Sophie's sanity if we were if I was able to entertain her outside the house for 3/4 of a day.
You're just going to Earl Woods it and like tape a golf club to her hands at the age of 2?
As terrible as it is, I've actually been reading that Earl Woods' book about how to train a tiger. I think it's a lesser known title. I had never heard of it before, but I'm only about halfway in, so I haven't gotten to the true like Green Beret mind games parts yet. But I think we're going to take a little bit more of a light touch approach.
Yeah.
I don't trust myself to teach her the right things, so we're going to need to involve someone who knows what they're doing.
There's plenty of YouTube videos and maybe a golf pro or something. You could take lessons together. Okay, that's good. Any other skills you really excited for her to learn?
I'm excited to teach her the miracle of sarcasm. I witnessed your daughter sort of discovering it at a certain age, and it was a lot of fun. They're not very good at it at first, but that's going to be awesome. Anything sort of humor development related, I'm in for it.
Well, she have good role models in you and me for that, so that's great. Okay, we have 2 more questions before lightning round. I had to work in a question from my sister-in-law, your wife, who messaged me earlier today and said, I need you to ask this to Dan. Here's the surprise question that you should ask him. She wants to know, and as do me and our audience, have your dad jokes improved since becoming a dad? And if so, could you prove it?
I've always had somewhat sort of a dry sense of humor. If that's dad-like, then I'm on board. I don't have a laundry list of puns available to me yet.
Okay.
So that's what I think of when I think of a dad joke, is like having a pun for every situation.
It's my dad joke calendar. I got it right here. This is yesterday's. Why do trees look suspicious on sunny days?
I don't know.
Well, it's because they just seem a little shady. That's the joke.
That one actually physically hurt me. It was so uncomfortable and lame.
I agree. That was pretty bad.
I'll tuck that one away for a rainy day, though.
Yeah, make sure to share that one with Sophie later tonight. Okay, Sophie, mission accomplished. We talked about dad jokes. Check. Last one for you before lightning round. If Anna plays this recording in 20 years, or more likely it's beamed from the AI brain that lives in the cloud, what do you want future her to hear from her dad and from her uncle, Adam?
Wow. 20 years. Okay. Anna, it's dad. You are now 21 years and 3 months old. I am 59 years old and in noticeable decay due to a lifetime of plastics exposure. Hopefully by now you have finished teething, because it's been no fun. Your Uncle Adam and I just wanted to let you know that we have no notes. You're doing excellent work, whatever it is. You're exactly where you need to be, and we're both extremely proud of you, but especially me. You're patient and kind, and no matter what, you are always perfect. Don't go to law school if it still exists. And you owe your Uncle Adam $50.
Yes. These Startup Dad t-shirts aren't cheap, got to tell you. Nor are the mugs, by the way. Check out the merch store at startupdadshop.com.
How come I don't have any merch?
Well, we'll get you some. That's part of the being a guest experience. I have nothing else to add. That was flawless, especially the $50 plug. $50 is going to be worth like a nickel in 20 years. So thank you, inflation. Okay, well, here we go. Lightning round. This is a doozy. We got a doozy of a lightning round here. Most indispensable parenting product that you have ever purchased?
Definitely the baby shusher. It's just a battery-operated machine that repeatedly shushes.
I remember that. I think we established the most useless parenting product is the nose Frida. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Get that out of my face.
Okay. Stroller or carrier, what is the hill that you will die on?
That's going to depend on the terrain and how long I'm walking, but either one. I mean, either way, I'm working out my glutes. It's great for the glutes.
Gotta pound the glutes. Totally. True or false, there's only one correct way to load the dishwasher?
There are a bunch of correct ways to load a dishwasher, but only one correct method, which is my method.
I see. And your method is just throw everything in and press the button, or painfully and tastefully align everything perfectly?
My method is more about understanding how to place things so that they can get water on them and get clean, as opposed to like stacking things vertically where you're taking half the dishes out unclean.
It's true. It's true. That would be a big frustration. What is your signature dad superpower?
Definitely bath time. I've mastered bath time, and I've also mastered getting her to sleep quickly. I have a particular method that even if she's not showing signs of tiredness, will make her start showing them and then drift her off to sleep.
I see. And is that just shouting go to sleep at her until she goes to sleep?
It's just turning on the shusher and then, tying it to her.
I got it.
It's a proprietary blend of rocking and singing.
If I recall, the bath time is also your kryptonite because you've been sprayed in the eye with soapy water before. Is that right?
Yes.
Just blasted right in the eye.
No, I always get the brunt of bath time. There have been injuries. I always get splashed on.
Did she poke you in the eye one time or something like that?
She did. Yeah. And I didn't even really remember it, but Sophie apparently had been upstairs listening and had heard like giggling and talking. And then she heard, "Oh, my eye."
Did she come running downstairs?
Of course not. She just thought it was funny.
Just laughing at you from the upstairs. I love it.
Yeah. So I don't know that I would have remembered it, but for Sophie's experience with it.
Okay. All right. Harder assignment. The 2 a.m. feeding or the public place diaper blowout?
Oh, definitely the blowout.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Next question.
What is your favorite activity to do with Anna?
I think I've mentioned some of them before. Probably dancing to music and chasing the dogs, sharing a meal, all the simple stuff. I mean, pretty much anything I do with Anna when she's not teething is the best.
That's great. If she had to describe you in one word, what would it be?
Papa, or maybe it's more like Baba. That's the only word she currently has to describe me. But she does know that it refers to me.
Yeah. Okay, good. We're there. Most frustrating thing that has ever happened to you as a new dad?
Oh, a lot of frustration. A lot of things happening that upset a dad. Probably being stuck in bumper to bumper traffic for like 2 hours with a baby that would scream every time the car stopped. It's happened a few times, although I don't know if she'd still do it today. I'm hoping not. And I've had to dig pretty deep to get through. I think I might have ground one of my teeth out of existence.
Ouch. What is your go-to dad wardrobe?
At home, I've got like 4 or 5 pairs of dad pants in rotation, and I have 10 or so solid color large t-shirts. I've got several pairs of slip-on shoes. They have to be slip-ons. All athletic socks, maybe a sweatshirt, light jacket. But yeah, basically jeans and a t-shirt, even though the pants are not always jeans.
Okay. How many parenting books do you have in your house?
I'd guess like 10, give or take.
How many parenting books have you read cover to cover?
I don't think any of them. I'm going to get there with the Earl Woods book. I can't remember. Maybe I read another one cover to cover, but I can't tell you the title of it. It's hard to get all the way through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of irrelevant content in there.
It's true. What is the strangest baby food that you've ever tried?
Probably puffs. Like what are puffs and why are puffs?
They just dissolve in your mouth.
They're also like stale permanently.
This is true. What is your favorite kids movie?
Other than Terminator 2 Judgment Day?
Yeah, other than that. Yep.
Oh, okay. Probably Ratatouille, but I'm also not really up on my kids' movies these days. I know I will be, but I'm sure there have been a lot of good kids' movies over the last several years that I have not yet seen.
Yeah, you got to check out the Minecraft movie on Max, HBO Max. It's a good one.
I'll let my nephew tell me about that one.
Great. What nostalgic movie can you just not wait to force Anna to watch with you?
It's not a movie, but can I say classic Simpsons?
Classic Simpsons. That's a good one.
Or like if I have to pick a movie, maybe The Never-Ending Story.
Ooh, also a good one. Yeah.
Although I'm sure that does not age well.
It's all right. There are worse movies that have aged much more poorly. What is the worst experience you've ever had assembling a kid's toy or a piece of furniture?
Oh, that's usually an enjoyable thing for me. I like building or assembling furniture. It's like adult Legos. But I guess when we bought our crib secondhand, it was disassembled in a bunch of pieces and we bought it without any instructions. I probably could have found instructions on the internet, but I brilliantly chose to guess how to build it instead. There was a lot of yelling and sweating. There's definitely some Larry David moments in there. But I got it built and it hasn't collapsed yet.
I'm really sad that I wasn't there to witness this. It was awesome.
I'm happy that you weren't.
Yeah, a lot of sweating involved. How long can a piece of food sit on the floor and you will still eat it?
There are a lot of variables there. It's going to depend on the food and it's going to depend on the surface that it's fallen onto. Like, is it carpet? Is it tile? How clean is it? Is there sand on the floor? A lot of variables. So I'll just say 15 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. What do you imagine your favorite back in my story will be eventually? Because she's still too young for those.
Probably either talking about the 1 year where I actually had to trudge several miles in the snow to get to and from work before I moved to the West Coast and no longer had to deal with that. Or something about how I had to do my own schoolwork because I didn't have ChatGPT.
Okay. What is your favorite dad hack for road trips or flights?
On the road trip front, I don't know that this is a hack so much as just a cheat code, but for some strange reason, my car came stock with a series of these calming recordings of nature sounds. There's like light classical music and like birds chirping and waterfalls. And I don't know why that's stock on my car, but you scroll through AM, FM, Sirius, CarPlay, whatever, and then bam, sounds of nature. It's almost too much power.
Wow, that's impressive.
Certainly more useful than AM radio.
Yeah. You're not doing a lot of sports talk with Anna?
I think that's on FM now or
it
podcast.
Is. That's true. Yeah. Okay. Last question for you, sir. What is your take on minivans?
They're actually pretty sweet in terms of like tech and comfort, and they're expensive. I don't like today's minivans so much as I liked the ones in the 90s with like wood grain exteriors.
Yeah, like the Astro van or whatever.
And the bench seating and stuff. I also don't need a minivan because I have a child. Would I drive one if it made sense? Yeah. They're great.
If you could get some sweet wood paneling on it.
That's right.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Wood paneled minivan. That's all we've got for today. Thank you, brother, for joining me on this very special 100th episode. Thank you to my sister-in-law, your wife, for agreeing to allow you to come on the show and for supervising baby Anna while you did this. Give my niece a squeeze for me and a tickle.
Awesome. I will. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to today's special 100th episode of Startup Dad, featuring my brother, Dan Fishman. You can subscribe and watch the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just visit www.startupdadpod.com to learn more and browse past episodes. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.